recording. Okay, so guys, until yesterday, we have discussed a number of things. We have discussed what an SDLC looks like. Okay, we went through all the phases of SDLC. What is planning, what is requirements gathering, design phase, and then programming phase, testing, deployment, and support after deployment. We also discussed the different flavors of SDLC, Agile, RUP, Waterfall. And then we did spend a lot of time in requirements gathering, how requirements are gathered, what's the best approach. Okay, and then once the requirements are gathered, how to document those requirements as a first initial draft. And don't get me wrong, I mean, whatever we have discussed so far is heavily on the business side of things. We just discussed business requirements, specific business requirements, right? But I gave you an insight of how a business requirements have to be translated into technical requirements and non-functional requirements. So requirements, of course, is a very, very critical component of any project implementation. And you being the BA will be playing a very leading role. Leading role in what? In elicitation and documentation of requirements, business requirements, technical requirements. And then once we discuss requirements, the last two classes, two of them, were very heavily focused on the design side of things. Gathering requirements is one thing, documenting requirements is one thing, putting everything in verbal perspective is one thing, but you also need to put a number of aspects of your project from diagrammatic perspective. You have to understand that how your project will look like from diagrammatic perspective, and if you put everything in picture, how would it look like? Why do you need this? It acts as a supplement to your requirements. When you gather and draft 200 requirements, okay, 200 let's say, just for the sake of conversation, sometimes it becomes really confusing that what are these requirements all about? How are they related to each other? What's the relation between this process and that process? So it is better to put everything in pictorial perspective. And that's what you do using MS Visio. So you document requirements, you document all these diagrammatic representations, you put everything together, you send it out for approval. Sometimes we just do requirements first and then design, and then you send both of these things separately for approval. Sometimes you send them together. Depends on the nature of the project, depends on the scenario, depends on the situation, you know. There's no hard and fast rule. Now, if you notice, I have been using the word business requirements a lot, and so far what we really have discussed is an RTM, the requirements traceability matrix. The initial draft of requirements is created in an RTM, the spreadsheet we discussed the other day. What we are going to discuss today is the actual formal deliverable, which you, the business analyst, will be creating and will be sending to the senior leadership, the business stakeholders, called the BRD. This document is called the BRD, Business Requirements Document. The spreadsheet we discussed during our third class is just an RTM. It's just a draft of business requirements, priority of those requirements, modules of those requirements, and that's it. But you have to look at a much bigger picture. Requirements is just not the end. There's so many other things which you have to work on. So in order to provide all those details, you, the business analyst, will be creating this document called BRD, Business Requirements Document. I found this example, this template on the internet, this Pennsylvania Department of Public Welfare. I didn't create this. They did. It's on their website, and I'm using this as a reference for the sake of our discussion. Whenever you are working for a certain or specific client in the healthcare industry or finance industry or any industry, and they expect you to work on a BRD, they will give you their template. And all templates are pretty much similar to each other. And I'll show you how. They're very similar. They're not much different. We'll discuss at least 2 or 3 templates, or at least we'll discuss 2. I'll send you some more examples, 3 or 4. That's fine. You can review it. You can compare. They all are the same. And these templates are from organizations out there, real organizations. As I said, I didn't create any of those. So this is the BRD, Business Requirements Document, for this particular department. Whenever this particular department needs to implement any project, any IT project, they use this template. Chase Bank will have their own template. Bank of America will have their own template. But they all look pretty similar. There's barely any difference. So, without wasting much time, apparently these guys are implementing some data integration project. Okay, I added this up, by the way. And this is the first version of the document. This is the initial draft of the document. The date this was created. The first draft was created. And then there's a revision history. You put the date. You put the version number. 1.1. It's the initial draft. And then you write your name. Somebody else comes in, makes an update. Version number gets 1.2. Whatever updates are made, just describe those updates. Put your name. Whoever makes any kind of updates to the document needs to own the update or own the change. Revision history. For every formal deliverable, you, the BA, or anyone, I mean, it can be project charter, it can be project plan. If it's a project charter or plan, project manager needs to maintain the version control or revision history. For these documents which are owned by the BA, you have to maintain the version control. Table of contents. This is just a simple index of this particular document. Nothing much to go a little deeper into this. Okay. Introduction. Briefly describe this document. Briefly describe the nature of this document. What is this document intended for? The intention of this document is to highlight the new upcoming implementation for Bank of America. If you are implementing a website for Bank of America, which is bankofamerica.com, just for the sake of our conversation, you briefly describe that what exactly this project is all about. You know what? I take it back. Not this project. What this document is all about. The intention of this document is to discuss the upcoming implementation, bankofamerica.com, and the intention of this document is to highlight the objective, the high-level business objective, the high-level, the architecture, or the high-level plan of how and what we will be implementing. You don't use the same language, of course, but you briefly describe that what exactly this document is intended for. From a business perspective, what this project entails. You briefly introduce it. Simple business English. We are not discussing technology here, guys, by the way. Pretty much an extension of the introduction above. You have to provide the document overview. What is the purpose of this document? The purpose of this document is to discuss the upcoming project, bankofamerica.com, from business perspective. Any business stakeholder, any subject matter expert, if they need any kind of information, any approved information will be included in this document. When you are the business analyst, you interact with all these individuals, the stakeholders, the SMEs. You come and you come up with ideas, or you come up with questions. They answer the questions. You finalize some requirements. You finalize certain things. You document them here. So based on your interaction, based on your conversation with these business stakeholders and SMEs, and all the requirements or all the topics which are approved by your leadership will be discussed here. Just summarize a little bit about your organization. Just summarize a little bit about your team in this overview. Again, we are not talking about anything technical. We are not talking about any technology. We are just talking about, from a business perspective, what this project entails for us. So far, so good, guys. References. Now, try to understand one thing, and this is very important for you. When you are working in banking industry, when you are working in healthcare industry, you will hear this term a lot: compliance. Healthcare industry and banking industry are very heavily regulated by the government. There are lots of projects based on the new government regulations or influenced by the government regulations. Government comes up with a new regulation, new rules, which have to be implemented in the system. And based on those rules, this project is initiated. Just because of those rules, just because of those new new government regulations which have to be implemented, just to stay in compliant with the government, you have to implement those rules. So in healthcare, in finance, when the federal government or the state government wants you the organization, the healthcare company or the finance company, to be in compliance with the new government rules, the government will publish those rules. And if this particular project pertains to those new upcoming rules, you have to specify the source of those, or the location of those documents, or the source of your this project. If you are implementing a project because of these new rules, whatever those rules are, that publication, you have to specify that here. And believe me, when you are working in healthcare and finance, the reason I say these two examples again and again is because most of these projects, most of the projects in healthcare industry and finance industry are because of government regulations. Government always comes up with new rules and regulations, and they publish them. Based on those publications, you have to make changes. Now, your role in analyzing those publications, I will get into those details later. I'll tell you what role you will be playing. Government is not going to mail you those publications on your home address. They're not going to mail you anything. But yet, as a business analyst, you need to understand those rules and implement those rules. Examples of those rules and everything we'll discuss. Don't worry. We'll get there. Some real life examples like Obamacare. So any particular references which you are using, any publications, any particular references you are using in your project, you have to specify them here. Glossary of terms, any acronyms which you want to use in your project or implementation, you want to expand on those acronyms, specify them here. In healthcare, CMS is very important. Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. It's CMS, not CMMS, but it stands for Center for Medicaid and Medicare Services. It's an entity of the federal government. They come up with lots of regulations, lots of them, every year. Why do you think there are so many jobs for business analysts in the healthcare industry? It's all because of rules. It's all because of new regulations. That's why there's a lot of work, lots of work for BAs. HIPAA, another important term, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. Any acronyms you want to expand, just specify them here. Business requirement summary. Summarize the entire project. Couple of paragraphs, not too long. If you are implementing bankofamerica.com, you can summarize a project as the intention of this project is to build an online banking portal called bankofamerica.com. On this banking portal, the account holders can do certain functions or certain tasks, certain banking tasks such as application of credit cards, payment of credit cards, managing their personal accounts. They can apply for loans. All these activities are very heavily controlled and managed by the banking system in the back end. High-level business requirement summary, just high-level summary, nothing technical. You have to explain that what's the summary of this project. How would you describe this project? If you are building a project called Netflix, how would you describe it from business perspective? This project or this implementation is intended to build an online streaming service called Netflix.com, and all the paid subscribers will be able to access a variety of TV shows and movies and documentaries, categorized against different categories such as comedy and action and whatever, or segregated against different categories, whatever you want to call it, whatever you feel is the best. Document it. Just high-level business requirement summary. Nothing too technical. Problem statement. What is a problem statement? Why is Bank of America building this website? Bankofamerica.com. Why? Why are they doing this? I told you this in our first class. Whenever any organization builds a project, builds a system, it's only because of two reasons. The first reason is either they're trying to solve a problem by building a technical solution, or by doing something technical and solving that problem. Either that, or there is an economic opportunity which they're trying to make money off. So Bank of America, as an organization, they have to maintain so many branches across the United States. Think about this. If anyone wants to deposit a check, they have to go to a bank. Anybody wants to see how much money they have to go to a bank. They want to withdraw cash, have to go to bank. Any activity related to your bank account, the individual has to go to a physical branch and get things done. The biggest challenge is many of the banks are not even open 7 days a week. So there are so many limitations right there. So it's expensive. Maintaining a branch is expensive. You have to pay rent, you have to pay utilities, you have to pay salaries. So as an organization, they believe that, you know what, if we build a website so that people can do all these things on their own on the website, they don't have to come to a branch, we don't have to maintain that many branches. Maintaining a branch is expensive. Maintaining a website, not so much. Comparatively lower. How much lower? That's for the business people to come up with the number. They have to do the analysis. So the problem here is maintaining a physical branch is expensive for the organization, and with the growing customer base, it is almost impossible for the bank to keep up with their growing customer base. So the idea is to build an online banking portal so that people can do all the normal day-to-day activities with their account on the website on their own. Self-serving web portal. Why is somebody building a Netflix? Before Netflix built their app and their website, they were a DVD rental service. People used to rent DVDs from Netflix, which is great. But renting DVDs is not the best option. They have to mail you the DVD and then you send it back. Shipping cost is there. So much of additional cost, overhead. Why not build an online portal where everybody can just log in and watch the movies? So describe the problem statement. Why are we doing this? There's always a problem statement. That's the reason we are building this project. And to solve that problem, you as an IT team are coming up with a solution. And that will go to your project description. Problem statement is the section where you describe what's the nature of the problem you're trying to solve. Or what is the economic opportunity you're trying to take advantage of by building this project. And how will you do this? Then that's what you describe here. Bank of America as currently maintains 5,000 branches across the United States for 10 million members. Now, in the next 10 years, we anticipate to have 30 million members. So to cater to 30 million members, it is impossible to maintain another or open another 2,500 branches. So we as an organization have decided to build an online banking portal so that our customers can do all their daily, all their day-to-day banking activities on their own by building an online banking portal. The solution, whatever solution your team comes up with, you come up with, you describe here. So, just to summarize, high-level summary of the project, what this project is all about. You describe the problem, you describe the solution. So far, so good, guys. Are you with me so far? Now, let's say you guys are the business analyst. Okay, you are in the meeting, you're in a chat session, and then you are working to understand the requirements. And you're working with these stakeholders. Stakeholders come out and say, you know what, yeah, we want you to build this website, and account holders should be able to do all these things. They should be able to check their checking account, saving account, transfer money, and all that stuff. And you are trying to understand what exactly they want, what exactly they need. And you are taking notes, you're taking meeting minutes. And then one of the stakeholders says, you know what, money transfer is a big thing because people come to the branch and they want to transfer the money, they want to wire the money. It costs so much money and then it's very inconvenient. Sometimes there are long lines because people want to deposit money and wire money and so on. So it's inconvenient, So money transfer is a big thing for us. Okay, let's talk about money transfer then. How would anyone transfer money? Well, they have to select their account from which they want to transfer. Then they select the account to which they want to transfer from and to, right? The source and the destination. And they have to select the amount. Then they have to select the date. They authorize it. Money gets transferred. So build something like this on the website. It would be very cool. Sure, we can do it. So money transfer is a functionality which we will be building. Great. But money transfer between who? If Rohit wants to wire money to me or transfer money to me from his Bank of America account to my Bank of America account, is that possible? Sure, why not? If Itishri wants to deposit money from her Chase Bank to my Bank of America account, is that possible? Sure. Any kind of domestic transfer is not a problem. Within the same bank is not a problem. From one bank to another bank is also not a problem. Any kind of money transfer is not a problem. We can do it. Who's making all these commitments? Developers. You ask questions that, okay, you want money transfer functionality, right? Yes. How do you think it will work? Well, you select the from account, you select the to account, amount, date, authorized, done. Money transfer between whom? Domestic accounts? Sure. From the same bank to the same bank? Sure. Same bank to a different bank? Sure. We can do all this. Hey developers, what do you think? You say, yeah, we can do this. We can build it. It's no big deal. But what about international money transfer? If I want to send money to Mexico, if I want to send money to Canada, if I want to send money to France, what do you think? It's a very complex functionality. Money transfer doesn't mean that you can transfer anywhere you want. So this is a conversation you need to have in very detail, a very in depth with the business stakeholders. You are asking them, okay, you want us to build, us means the IT team to build the money transfer, we will build it. Bank of America to Bank of America is great. Bank of America to any other bank in America is also great. Chase or US Bank or whatever. Bank of America to some bank in Mexico? No, that's not going to happen. Who's saying all this? The technical people, the developers. That look, international money transfer is a very complex functionality. Every country has their own, own structure for the routing number. Some countries have 9 digits, some countries have 15 digits, some countries have ISBN code, some countries have that code. It's very complex. We cannot build it. We cannot build this functionality because we have to build everything by end of this year, and we are already committed to build the entire system. But international money transfer is something we cannot do. That's a very complex functionality and it's very regulated. Government doesn't allow transferring more than $3,000 at a time when wiring internationally. So lots of regulations. We cannot do it. Who's saying all this? The developers, the technical people. So, during your conversation, during your chat session, you are taking notes and you are noting that money transfer, domestic money transfer is a great idea. And this is in scope. We will build this. However, even though we discuss international money transfer, we will not build this. So you have to draw a clear line between what is in scope and what is out of scope. During your conversation, just because you discussed it, you brought it up, that doesn't mean you will build it. You build only what you commit to. You commit to all these functionalities. You write them here. You discuss these functionalities, but you later find out that they are very complex. They are very time consuming. You don't have that time. You, the IT team. So you will not build it. Maybe in future, maybe as a separate project, they'll have to pay extra. Fine. Now, no chance. So clearly draw a line between what is in scope for this project and versus what is out of scope for this project. Does it make sense, guys? Abhinav, Mitishri, Rohit, what do you think? So far so good? Are you following me or not? What do you think?
Yes, Dhruv, it's clear.
It's simple. I mean, all you are doing is writing some introduction, describing this document, what this document is all about, who is the audience of this document, okay, based on what kind of conversations or based on conversations with what people you are creating this document, okay. Some references, external references, and any documents, if you have taken reference for this implementation, specify them here. Specify the acronyms. Not everybody knows what CMS is. Not everybody knows what HIPAA is. Okay. If you are using these terms in your implementation, expand them here. High level summary. Just high level summary that how what this project is all about. What is the problem? What is the problem? What is the solution? Sure. What is in scope? What is in scope? Okay. Versus what is out of scope. What is in scope and something you will be building, and what is something you discussed but you also agreed that you will not be building. That comes here. Stakeholders. List of all stakeholders involved. Write their name, department, their role, everything. List of all stakeholders. Very simple. Business constraints. Now this is a section where you have to provide some information based on your best judgment. So for example, we discussed there are some assumptions you have to make. If you are building a website called bankofamerica.com, you are making an assumption. What assumption? When you are building this website, you are making an assumption that the user will know at least English or Spanish. Someone who doesn't know either of these languages cannot use this system. You are making an assumption. You are making an assumption that whoever is using this website will have at least internet speed of 50 kbps. You know what? That's not an assumption. That's a dependency. That's a dependency. That's not an assumption. This website, the successful working of this website is dependent on whether the bare minimum internet speed of 50 kbps is available or not. If the internet speed goes below 50 kbps, this website will crash. It will not work. Anyone who wants to access this website will have at least Internet Explorer version number 7 or Google Chrome version number 8 or Firefox version number 7 installed on their PCs. If I go to my garage and bring my old laptop from 2007 and use that laptop, and if it still works, I'm pretty sure it won't, but let's say it works, and I try to access this website, it won't open. No, because this website is built using certain technologies, certain standards, which are compatible only with certain internet browsers, certain version of internet browsers. At least Internet Explorer version number 7 should be used. At least Google Chrome version number 8 should be used. Anything older than that will not be able to support this website and will crash. Is that an assumption or a dependency? You decide. Sounds like a dependency to me. It can go either way. A friend of mine, was building a project recently. He works for a bank, and he was working on a portal for mortgages, home loans. Excuse me. So he is building this portal, and it will reflect, different kinds of loans the bank offers. For that loan, this is the rate. For that loan, this is the rate. Well, guess what? You need to understand, in the banking industry or the mortgage industry, the interest rate is decided or is based upon what the interest rate is decided by the Federal Reserve. If Federal Reserve raises the rates, interest rates, banks have to raise the interest rates. A couple of years ago, if you wanted to buy a house, you could get a loan at 3%. Right now, you won't be able to get a loan less than 4.5% or 4.7%. These rates keep on changing. Why? Why are they changing? because the Federal Reserve, if they raise the rates, banks have to raise the rates. So on his online portal, where all the products were listed and their rates were listed, they're dependent on what the rates are going to be in next 6 months and 1 year, based on how things play out in the government. Is that it's not an assumption, it's a dependency or a constraint. You decide. It can go either way. So any assumptions, any dependencies, any constraints you can think of in your implementation, you document them here. Sounds good, guys? So far, so good? About the language, about the platform. If you are building Netflix, you would assume that the user of this app, this Netflix app, will have at least iOS version 7 installed on his iPad. If your iOS is really old and you haven't updated that for a while, your Netflix app will not work. That's a dependency or a constraint maybe. Whatever your best judgment says, specify it here. If you want to access Netflix streaming without any problems, you need a bare minimum internet speed of 1 Mbps. For HD, maybe 2 Mbps. It's a dependency, so document it here. Make sense, guys? Any items, any particular functionalities which you discuss during your requirements gathering sessions, you discuss, but you decide that you will not be building it now. This is out of scope for now, but in future you can revisit these and build it. They're called parking lot items. That, you know what, let's put this in the parking lot. In future, it's a good idea, but we'll build it in future. Like international wire transfer. Since you and your team, you are the BA, right? You are facilitating this conversation. You bring up, okay, wire transfer. Bank of America to Bank of America. Is it possible? Developers, what do you think? Yes. Okay. Bank of America to any other bank in the US. Is it possible? Yes. Great. Bank of America to any other bank anywhere in the world. Is it possible? Well, it is possible, but it's very complex. It will take a long time. We cannot build this now. This is out of scope. But in future, since this is such a great idea, we will build it. We will build it, but in future, not now. In future releases, we will build it. So let's document here. It's not part of the approved requirements, but let's document it here. 3 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago, at least, or maybe I think until last year. Until last year, on Netflix, you could watch movies, you could browse movies, TV shows, and whatever, but you cannot download anything. You couldn't. That they didn't have this functionality. But at the time of requirements gathering, let's suppose if somebody came up with the idea of downloading stuff, programmers could have said that, you know what, okay, downloading is a great feature, but it's a complex functionality. We don't have the time. We're not going to do this right now. But you know what we'll do? We'll launch a product now. In 1 year, maybe we will launch another update to this app. We'll update this app and we'll add this functionality in future. So this is the parking lot item for now. Make sense?
Yes.
Any questions? Now, you guys must be wondering that we did RTM, the requirements, and then we did the design, and then we are coming back to BRD. Why? You know why? Because a very important part of a BRD is the process flow diagrams. So, Once the RTM is done, once all the design work is done, it will all be part of the BRD. Not all, but at least some of it. One of the most important sections or parts of a business requirements document is to document as is scenario and to be scenario. How does the current situation look like before implementation? You document it verbally and diagrammatically. Look at this process flow. Even this process flow is possible to create in MS Visio. All these shapes and computers and servers, everything is there. These arrows, you know how to create. Currently, the situation looks like this. Currently, the swim lane diagram for the situation or for the process looks like this. It's a swim lane diagram, 3 lanes right there. This is what we discussed, right? On Friday. That's what it is. Currently, before implementation, pre-implementation of this project, this is how the situation looks like in terms of business process flow, in terms of swim lane diagram. As is. As is means as of today. But after this implementation is done, it is fully implemented. This is how the situation will look like. What this project is implemented. This is how the situation will look like. They're different. Look at that. Look at this diagram. Look at this process flow. I mean, I don't expect you to read through all of them, but look at the overall layout. And now look at this. This process flow is different. This is different. The swim lane is different. Things have changed. Why have they changed? Because currently the situation is different. In future, scenario will be different. After implementation, things will be a lot easier. They will be a lot streamlined. They will be a lot faster. And that is exactly why we are building the system. So as is and to be scenarios are something that you as a business analyst will be documenting in MS Visio, and then you'll put it here. These guys have process flows and swim lanes, but they don't have use cases because they didn't build any. I'll show you another template where they have use cases too. As is and to be scenario. And now, finally, you have your RTM. You remember hold on, let me show you an RTM. You remember this document? The RTM, the business requirements, the requirements traceability matrix. This whole document could contain 500 requirements or maybe 1,000. Okay, gathered by 5 or 6 or more BAs. This document comes out here. So you can imagine the list of your requirements is a small part of your BRD. There's a whole lot of information in scope, out of scope, as a scenario, to be scenario, assumptions, constraints, dependencies, what's the problem, what's the solution, summary of the project, all those things. You own it, you document it. RTM. And that's the end of it. Does it make sense, guys? Are you with me so far? Briefly introduce the project, briefly describe the document, excuse me, some references, any glossary, any particular acronyms you're using, requirement summary, just high level summary. Okay. What's the problem and what's the solution? What is in scope? What is out of scope? List of stakeholders. Any constraints, assumptions, and dependencies you can think of based on your understanding of the project. Document them. Anything you discussed during the chat sessions and you thought it was a good idea, but you cannot build it now, but you will build it in future. You document it in the parking lot area. Like international money transfer. All the diagrammatic part, pertaining to as is scenario, business process flows, swim lane diagrams created in MS Visio, documented here. Similarly for 2B, as is and 2B, both of them, you document them here. And then comes your RTM and your job is done. Sounds good, guys? Any questions, thoughts, comments before I zip through another template really fast? Not we won't spend too much time because it's similar. Any questions, any thoughts? Abhiram, Itishri, Rohit, what do you think? This is a template from a different company, different client. Okay, so let me just finish, zip it through, and then feel free to ask any questions. So same thing here, version history, just documented, list of all the people who will be approving this document, their name, their role, signature, date. It will be probably your project manager, your senior stakeholders, some SMEs, all the senior people. Index, some project detail, name of the project, start date, end date, sponsor. Sponsor is probably going to be your VP or director. And primary driver, secondary driver, your name, your project manager's name, whatever. Okay. Overview of the project. Okay, some high level details about the project, that what exactly you are doing in this implementation. Document resources, pretty much references. Okay, all the I think you have to list the stakeholders here. Sorry, so list of all the stakeholders, just like we did in the last document. Glossary of terms, all the acronyms, HIPAA, CMS, whatever, all the acronyms. Project overview and background, high level explanation of this project, some background about this about the organization. Okay, you can write a simple background that Bank of America has been running or operating 5,000 plus branches across the United States. However, maintaining branches is a big challenge financially for the organization, and that's why the organization has come up with a technical solution to build an online banking portal. Okay, some background based on your best understanding, simple business English. Dependencies, stakeholders. I don't know why they have two stakeholders at two places. They have all stakeholders and resources. I think this is more for all the references, but anyways, stakeholders, assumptions and constraints. So they have dependencies and assumptions and constraints listed separately, but that's okay. You can list them here. And now these guys don't have any business process flows or swim lanes, but they have use cases. You remember use case from yesterday? Actors, description, precondition, postcondition, normal course, alternative course, exceptions, includes, priority, frequency of use, business rules. I mean, they have some additional sections like business rules. You can write the high level business rules for that particular scenario, but assumptions, everything else is the same. List of factors, the description, precondition, all that stuff. You write the verbal part and the graphic part. So for example, they have populated all the information here, and here's a graphic part, the diagrammatic part. Okay, they just created a sample use case. It's not even complete, but the system boundary, the actor, all the activities this person can do, and this individual will be linked to all these activities. So they have a use case. Great. Business requirements, They have segregated all the or listed all the requirements based on the category. These are the business requirements, or these are the reporting requirements. We'll discuss what reporting requirements are, okay, in detail once we're done with SQL classes. Some security requirements about encryption, decryption. This is all network stuff. You don't know. They just tell you, so you just write it down. That any 128-bit encryption will be used, SSH and PGP encryption will be used, a secure channel will be created, all that stuff. Performance or service level requirements, internet speed or data transfer speed, and bare minimum network standards and all that stuff. Processing speed, scalability, okay, how many requests per second it can support. You know, it's one of those things that if you open a website, if you start a website or an app, how many people can use that app at the same time without causing any problems? Okay, I don't know if you remember this, because I was born in the 80s, so I used my first computer in late 90s. And then when they initially came up with the internet, websites used to crash all the time. All the time. They would just choke because too many people would log on to that website and the website would crash. So we used to have those kind of problems and challenges in the past. Not anymore though. They're very robust, very strong. So all about scalability and support and maintenance. So they have segregated the requirements based, all these non-functional requirements based on different categories. Performance and scalability and support and maintenance. Who will support this project? Who will do the maintenance work? What kind of maintenance work needs to be done? So all that stuff. And don't worry, we'll discuss all these scenarios in detail. So you populate all the requirements based on all these categories. And that's it. So it's very similar to what we just discussed. Okay. And then there's another template, which I'll let you review on your own. But it's very similar. Same thing. These are from different company, of course. Make sense, guys? Any thoughts, questions, comments? What do you think? What I'm going to do is I will stop the recording and then I'll open the line for questions. Feel free to unmute yourself and ask any questions if you have. Okay. So